Kia ora everyone, welcome to No Boundaries. I'm Laura McGoldrick, very lucky to have with me two of the current World Test champions. I have got former Black Cap Ross Taylor, current Black Cap Test captain Tim Southee with me, and we are of course getting ready for what will be a really exciting couple of weeks of Test cricket. Ross, when you think back on the fact that you guys were obviously the inaugural winners of it, is it sunk in completely now? Because you've obviously had a bit of time away from the game now. Yeah,
so we can still call ourselves world champions for a few more days. But no, I reckon it took a year or so for it to fully sink in. The reception when we got home was fantastic. But yeah, I guess to finally get over the hurdle after the hurt of 2019 is something I'll never forget.
Tim, when you look back on it, I mean, it was a few years ago, we were right in the thick of COVID. When you did come home and the chance to celebrate came, it was a bit of a delay, really, because you guys had to go straight into quarantine. So what was that like in terms of celebrations? Is that how you imagined it would be when you won a trophy?
Yeah, it was a great night, obviously, in England. And then the flight home was good. And then we sort of got off the plane and didn't see each other for 2 weeks. Chucked into a hotel room for 2 weeks in quarantine and got a little bit of yard time at the end of each day to sort of catch up and sort of reminisce on what we just achieved. But yeah, a strange feeling having just won something so special and then having to come back and not celebrate it straight away. But then we had obviously the most tour of the country, which was very special to see the amount of people come out and support us.
I actually saw Tim a lot during that 2 weeks because he was opposite me. We both had suites.
Oh.
So every time our food would arrive, knock on the door.
Catch up.
That was our only time we could catch up.
3 times a day would
say hello and then shut our door.
That must have been hugely surreal. Did everyone get a turn with the mace at least while you're in your? I don't know what you'd do with it in there on your own, but how did that work?
I think we gave it to BJ.
Yeah, because BJ retired, so we gave it to BJ. Said, "Here, you take it, and look after it for the 2 weeks," which is actually. It actually turned out to be shocking for BJ because he had to do all the media because he had the mace. So all the Zoom calls, all the Zoom media, he was the man that everyone wanted a piece of because he obviously had the mace. So he wasn't too pleased about it. He was stoked when you told him he could have the mace, but then we saw him 2 weeks later and he wasn't pleased with the idea.
In terms of trophies, I was actually interviewing an All Black around the same time that you guys won, and he brought in the Bledisloe Cup, and he said, "I just don't understand this mace." He said, "You know, you could use it to stir whatever's in the Bledisloe Cup, but I mean, You couldn't drink out of it. How'd you celebrate with it?
I'm not sure we're allowed to say.
Oh, okay, fair enough. That's fine. Okay.
No, it was... Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, being able to celebrate, there's no Bledisloe or World Cup, but yeah, there was definitely things consumed, just not...
Next to it.
Next to it.
It was actually quite awkward because you couldn't actually, because it wasn't a trophy, you couldn't just stand it. You actually had to hold it the whole time. So you'd hold it for a bit and then you'd pass it on to someone else because you almost got... It's not like a trophy because it was obviously like a... Yeah, they had a sharp end, so you couldn't just... Or had to lie down, rest it on the floor or back into that sort of thing that it was on. But yeah, it was not a well thought out trophy.
Did you get back together as a group? I know you did the tour and there were different members of the team sort of throughout the country that took that mace around. But have you got back together as a team to celebrate since the World Test Championship?
Not really, because it was obviously... Coming back for COVID, there was guys that stayed over to play county cricket. But yeah, it feels a bit strange to talk about COVID because we were still in, probably level 3 or whatever that was. Auckland was still in lockdown. We weren't able to get to different places. And then the team obviously changed around a little. BJ retiring and a few other guys moving on as well.
Yourself being one of those. So if we look back to the actual, I had to mention it. If we look back to the actual game itself, in the build-up, you had the 2 tests in England. Tim, you bowled particularly well in those first 2 tests, got yourself on the honours board at Lords again. Did you feel comfortable with the preparation? Like, did you feel ready to win this thing? Did you know that it was a very real possibility?
Yeah, I think looking back on it, those test matches were obviously planned in advance and then happened to be a masterstroke with us making the final to have those 2 test matches and enabled guys to get ready. We had guys coming back from the IPL who hadn't had a lot of red ball cricket. Other guys who'd been in England for a while, we'd been training, but there's nothing like match practice, and to have proper official test matches against a against England was ideal preparation. Some of us played the first, didn't play the second because there was a quick turnaround between the second and the Test Championship. Some didn't play the first and played the second. So it was actually nice to have the flexibility around how we prepared. But it was, I think, looking back on it, it was perfect preparation.
Ross, for you, you've played a lot of Test matches. You played up until this point. What was it like preparing, knowing that you were going to play a Test match, and this was a final to win a trophy? What was that like for you?
It was a little bit strange as Timmy said, it was great preparation, but I think you'd be kidding yourself if you didn't want to sort of save yourself a little bit. You wanted to win that Test match in Birmingham, but you still were like, oh, do you go hard just in case you get injured?
I seem to recall you going very hard in Birmingham. Is that right? Was it that Test that you went a bit? You got into your work there?
I don't know about that. In what regard?
I don't know. I just remember swinging, a lot of swinging.
Oh, that was that was at Lord's.
Oh, sorry.
I thought I was playing 2020 to try and set up a game there. But no, as I said, I think we had great preparation. But after we knew that India would have been not far away after how well we played in that first Test at Lord's with no warm-up game. So we knew we had the better of the preparation, but we knew we didn't want to get too carried away, knowing that India had the warm-up game amongst themselves like we did. Tim got me out with his new delivery that I think he got a few wickets in that game. Do you still use it?
Just turn the ball around.
Just turn the ball around.
It's easy as that.
And then he did it last time and it didn't work, did it?
No. It was a bit of a fluke, I think.
It was a fluke?
It got Rohit Sharma out in the final, though, so it worked.
Exactly.
Not a fluke at all, then. So, Tim, if you look back when you arrived in Southampton, there was a lot of rain around and there was a lot of talk that it was going to be an interrupted match. What was the feeling on that first day? You yourself have also played in nearly 100 Test matches, so what were the nerves like? Were there nerves? Was it excitement? What was going through your mind on day one?
I think it was also, we initially arrived in Southampton, did we? And had that training had a training camp, and a 2-day warm-up game, and then we went away to Lord's, and then went to Edgbaston, and we came back to Southampton. So it was nice to have that, I guess, that familiar sort of surroundings. We'd trained there as a group. We'd stayed in the hotel, so we came back, and the rain around was not ideal, but we knew we had great preparation in the lead into that, so it allowed guys to, I guess, stay calm and trust that we didn't need to train. We could just top up and do what we needed to indoors. But I remember that first day morning, everyone had been so excited, looking forward to this game, and then you pull back the curtains and it's absolutely teeming down, the field's flooded, and you're just like, there's absolutely no chance of playing today. So I guess that's where that 6-day rule came in and was a blessing, and I think it's been a great idea because you want a result in a final, obviously. So we obviously lost the whole first day. Had to wait an extra day to get out there. I guess there's a lot of nerves and energy used throughout that day, checking the weather, playing all sorts of games when it's raining, trying to, I guess, just stay focused. So
day 2, you wake up. It's looking more promising. You're getting ready. What was the feeling like in the camp? Because obviously a lot of you, or a large core of that group, had been through 2019 and some even 2015. So you knew what to do when it came to finals. But to win one, what was the conversation like between captain, coach and the senior players as you prepared for the start of that match?
Like anything, a Test match, the balance of your side becomes important. We were umming and ahhing whether to play a spinner. AJ's bowled very well to win the Test match in Birmingham, but we saw that the forecast was for rain. We went with the extra seam bowler, which I think was great, and we saw India have gone in with Jadeja and Ashwin. So I think we knew it wasn't going to break up that well, so we were happy with that. But with the one-day final, obviously it's over in one day, five-day Test, you're probably able to get into the match a little bit more. And I've never played in a game where I think we obviously won the toss, good toss to win. But the way the team sung the anthem that day, I don't know if we'd sung it that well if we were batting, but it was definitely the way especially the old big boys and the fast bowlers got their lungs out, and that's when I found that I thought that we were up for this match, and something I'll never forget as well.
Do you remember that, the anthem, and singing particularly loud?
No, it's probably because it wasn't a full crowd that you could probably hear us a bit more. But,
and plus he was bowling. See, I didn't have to. I didn't have to bat.
These batters, they change when if they're batting, they got everything. Just the world has to stop and
then they're nervous. Ready, so. When they have to put the ball in the right spot, they're nervous. So.
I remember we started, and I don't know whether we were a little bit overexcited or nervous or what. I remember we didn't start that well. I remember bowling the first couple of overs, and I was like, yeah, it wasn't our. We'd obviously done so well in the 2 years leading into it as a bowling attack and bowled so well, the four of us seamers, and then I remember starting, I was like, oh no, like this is not the time to not to go so well, but we managed to pull it back. I think we started to get a couple of wickets, and then we never looked back.
The wickets did start to come. I remember because I was working here with Mike Hesson, and we were watching it all very excited. What was the feeling like once you did start to get wickets? Because you're always there or thereabouts, Ross. You're right by the batter. Were India nervous as well? Yeah,
I think so. As I said, it was a good toss to win, and Swimangul and Rohit Sharma got them off to a good start. But once we did get a bit of a roll, Kyle Jamieson had just come on and had been bowling fantastically well, and we just knew we just needed to put the ball there, and something would happen. The Duke ball always does something at different times, and this particular Duke ball seemed to be doing more as the older it got. So I thought we caught really well in that whole series, but I think on day one of a World Cup, even though it was day two, was always going to be nerve-wracking, whatever we did.
I see you guys captivated by what's going on behind me here, and obviously that's Kyle doing his thing, and he bowled incredibly well, ended up being player of the match. What was it like to bowl alongside that, Tim? Was it exciting?
Yeah, it was still very early on in Kyle's career, and for him to be able to continue that form he'd shown in the early stage of his career on the biggest stage was very pleasing. And I think he looked back to it, especially on that last day, being able to turn up and take those early wickets of key batsmen, Kohli, in particular, to give us a chance to chase down those runs on that last day was just exceptional, and just shows you the talent that he is and the form that he was in at that time. So I think as a bowling unit, we were probably at the peak of our powers for that sort of 2 year period of four of us seamers going like we were. It was just awesome to be a part of, not only the final but just the 2 years leading into it as well, and the success we had in the lead up to that game.
You did seem like a great team, a great unit, and you've obviously just released your book only a year ago. I think you can still buy that, actually. You're welcome, Ross. And so when you wrote, one of the last chapters was your conversation with Kane before you went out to bat on that final day, or the night before, I think it was. So talk us through a little bit, for those who haven't bought the book yet, which I'm sure everyone will now. Tell us a little bit about that conversation and how you were feeling as a batter going into that match.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's the same with bowlers, but batting, you go through different stages where everything clicks and you don't need to worry about it. I didn't feel particularly great. Kane obviously had an injury, and I think for me it was just nice to hear that two of New Zealand's senior players at the eve of the biggest Test match of their careers could, I guess, discuss different things about their career and insecurities, I suppose, about batting. And
super glad to hear about it
afterwards.
So
yeah, I think if you're a New Zealand fan and you heard that myself and Kane were going through the anxieties that we were, you might not have been that confident going forward. But I think at the same time, it was nice to reassure each other of where we were, and it just, I suppose, fast forward 6 or 7 days after, because that was the night before day one, for us to walk off together, winning the World Cup, and I suppose getting over our anxieties and insecurities along the way.
Well, it showed that you're human, which I think people loved reading about in your book, and will love hearing about that as well. Tim, when things got really interesting was when you took those 2 wickets late on, was it day 3? Day 4? Must be day 4.
It gets confusing with the rain.
I'm not sure. Just before the end.
Second to last day.
Second to last day. You took those 2 wickets late to put New Zealand in a really good spot for that final day. What was the feeling like when you walked off that night?
Yeah, I think that day was sort of, the game was still in the balance. We obviously probably would have liked a few more runs, but we kind of knew that we had a decent and competitive total on the board. And we knew it wasn't easy. The batters all found it tough to score runs, so we knew that with the overhead conditions and late in the day, if we could get it early inroads and get a couple of their batters out, then obviously makes 10 up to day 5, 6, whatever it was. Just that little bit more interesting, and we're able to get the 2 openers. And then, like I say, KJ's spell on the sixth morning really gave us a chance, and I guess that's when we sort of started to believe, was that once we got Kohli and Pujara and the likes the next day, I think we started to believe. There was a moment there, I think I dropped Rishabh Pant, and I
wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, I thought, oh shit, I think we've just dropped the game, because he's a guy that can take the game away from us, and if he bats for a session or a session and a half, then I think it's probably game gone. And then he managed to sky one. I remember it going up, and I said, please someone catch that, and thankfully Henry Nicholls took a great catch, and I think everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and then yeah, we never looked back. I remember watching us bat though. It was the longest 139 runs ever. I think at one stage we all sat there watching, no one moved from their seats. I went and had a sleep, woke up, felt like I'd been asleep for an hour or so, and I think we scored 3 or 4 runs. These guys taking their time. It was a tough long watch. Guys, a lot of energy, nervous energy in the change room. But I think when Kane and Ross were there, there was a little bit more calmness around the change room.
Well, look, even a fan late at night. But what were we going to say?
No, I was going to say what I remember of that day 5 evening was Virat Kohli coming out to bat. You're in a World Cup final, Indian captain, and he doesn't send out a night watchman. So we were yarning about it, thinking this is what's going on here. And then Tim, you hit him like second ball in the head, deflects down. It was the only time I'd run to the boundary.
In years, I haven't seen you do that in a while.
And full tit, because I thought, well, if I get injured, I get injured now. But yeah, it was just interesting. So I thought, I'm going to ask Kohli why in the biggest game he didn't send out a night watchman. And I thought, I'll ask him. And then he said, I'm better than the couple of expletives in there. I'm better than the night watchman. And then he realised I was only just asking a genuine question, but I thought it was an amazing insight into seeing how his mind works, that in the biggest game he still wants to get out there and do his job and get hit by Tim in the heat as well, and then get him out the next morning. So.
That was quite good. That was a good story, Ross. I wasn't sure where you were going there initially. I thought you were going to bring up Tim's 30 runs he scored.
That was good. Valuable.
Valuable runs. Do you talk a lot about batting with each other?
I think these guys can sense when the lower order are a little bit anxious, and they sort of come and sort of give us a little bit of advice they think will sort of calm us down. But
we can also sense when they're jovial as well.
Yeah.
So I was waiting to bat, and I saw Tim, Wags, and Bolty with their hoodies on, and I could sense they were nervous, so that was making me nervous, waiting to bat. But I went out to bat not long after, so I didn't have to feel nervous watching them.
In there. So when you did go out on that final day, and you knew there was a target, obviously, and you could become a World Test Championship or not, depending on how things went. What was that like out in the middle? Did you and Kane talk? Did you not talk?
Yeah. 130 odd, such a small target to get, but quite a nerve-wracking amount to. So we got out there. Kane was very calm, like he normally is, but we knew if we batted for 20 minutes, half an hour, and we could blunt them, that we were going to win this game. So, as Tim said, out there it felt like it was a long 20 minutes. I think it took 18, 20 balls to get off the mark. Ashwin wasn't giving me anything, and I was like, do I take him on? No, just guts it out, keep it on there. But I think it wasn't until we got to about 90 odd that Kane and I thought we were comfortable enough, and we're going to win there. And then Kane started to loosen up and play a few shots, and I think we raced from 100 to 130 pretty quickly. And
which at 4 o'clock in the morning, can I just say thanks ever so much for that?
Apologies. But no, as I said, there was a moment that it was touch and go, but I think once we got through that initial period of India being on top, as we know, the keeper and things start talking really loudly. They're talking a lot around the bat, but as soon as we got through that,
you got dropped. Did you get dropped? Was it the Signal?
second innings, Pujara at first. I think it was just after I got hit in the head, I think.
And then Kane got given out LBW, and it was like, and then because that's when we sort of, there's a little bit of panic because BJ had his finger was buggered, so he was going to be, he would have, BJ being BJ, he still would have gone out and batted, but we don't know to what effect he would have been. So we're kind of like, well, there's one batter kind of gone, and then Kane got given out LBW, Ross gets dropped, so we had a little bit of luck along the way. But the longer that these two batted, and we knew that that's when I guess the experience came in. That we managed to relax a little bit more. There's
two iconic moments of celebration that I recall as a fan. One was you and Kane walking off arm in arm, and now we know about the conversation you had the night before, makes it even more poignant and special. But it was also actually you, when you were watching, I think maybe your media guy was filming you particularly, standing at the changing room door, and then everyone sort of just engulfed you afterwards. You were right in the middle of it, looked bloody awful, but looked like a lot of moving people. But in the moment when you knew that you'd won, what sort of came over you? Because it had obviously been 2 years of hard work and you'd become quite a unit, quite a family. It looked like it couldn't have meant more to you in that moment when the winning runs were scored.
Yeah, I think it's probably at the time, it's obviously just you're so excited, and obviously even jumping over each other, and these two just casually put their arm around each other out in the middle, and just an amazing feeling. I think it's more probably special now. I've still got a video saved on the phone of that moment, and you sort of look back every now and then, and you just sort of, it's a pretty amazing achievement when you look at us as a country, such a small country, proud sporting country, and for us to be able to do that, it was very special. We'd obviously come very close in 2015 and 2019, and then the year after in the T20 World Cup, we were second again. So it was nice to get over the line, and I think it's something that even now, when you look back on, and for the rest of our lives, when you keep looking back on, I think it's just a real proud, amazing achievement from a bunch of just Kiwi blokes that really enjoyed playing for each other.
When you and Kane got to the dressing room to see all the rest of the team, a lot of cuddles and bum taps and stuff, I'm thinking, when you got there, right? Yeah,
I mean, I never saw that video till probably a couple of days afterwards, which was obviously Kane and I are out there, but that was cool to see, what it meant to obviously the support staff and the players. But no, there was there's a few wet eyes from a few of the support staff as they came on, and there was a good, 300 or 400 Kiwis who had been, yelling for a good 2 or 3 days straight. And it was nice to be able to share with that, and after the game, get rid of all your boots and gear that you don't want to bring back to New Zealand. And I'm sure all those 300 or 400 Kiwis who were there, majority of them have got some memorabilia to, I guess, think back on and think how cool it was for them to be there and get some of our gear.
I think we were actually just more excited that it was finally over. It took so long to get the runs that we were actually just pleased that it was over.
Well, someone said to go to work that day.
And then on the memorabilia stuff, I remember because we had a whole lot of shirts that were made up for all the guys that were there, and there was, I think, there's a few guys that were on the England tour but didn't make the cut for the Test Championship final, so there was Satner shirts and someone else's shirts. And I remember going to the bag and there was these Kiwis, and I went out the back and just threw them over the thing. I was like, I imagine Mitch won't mind because he didn't need them, but
well, it's a valid point.
Few. But then the next day you'd see them scattered around the ground. So it was great to see those guys, the support we did have, and they really rallied together, especially on those last couple of days, and created a bit of an atmosphere which was pretty special considering that it was only a limited crowd.
Looked like a few of them had sunstroke, actually, if I recall properly. There was shirts off. It was great. But I have heard a rumour from a pretty reliable source. The hotel sits around the ground. You will have seen, and that's where you guys were staying. And there were also some other people staying in the hotel. And I heard that 2, 3 in the morning, there was some hakas, there was some anthems, there was a lot of singing from, the Kiwi boys, like in the middle of the field. Did you just not really leave for a bit? Because you went to sleep with your whites on.
We couldn't leave. We were stuck. We
go and spend a bit more time in our room that we'd already spent a couple of weeks at. For me, I'm not sure, I think Mike Sandel, our manager, had done a good job. There's a lot of Kiwi products in the change room and in our team room. So I've never seen so much gin and Chardonnay in my life. That was in there. So obviously we were leaving the next day, so there's no need to leave it there. So it was. I think Ashwin put a post up to saying that there was a war cry, and I'm not sure there was a haka, but
I think it was just the pledge.
I think it was just our team song.
Oh.
There was no hakas done. I can assure you of that.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I would have liked to have seen it. So we look forward to obviously the next match, which is happening very shortly. Who is your favourite, your hot tip to win this next World Test Championship?
You want me to answer?
Either right. Who wants to go first?
I think if you look at it on paper and the experience in those conditions, it's hard to go past Australia. They play in the Ashes. The way they go about it, they play there a lot more. India have got a few injury concerns going through, but if there's one thing I've learnt with this current Indian side is to, never write them off. They had a lot of injuries and won against Australia in Australia, which is no mean feat. But, I think this far out at the Oval, I think Australia are a slight favourites.
For you, Tim?
I think it's a toss of a coin, but I won't sit on the fence. I'll go with India. I think the experience of being there before. A lot of their guys were in that final. You got guys and someone like a Shubman Gill who's in the form of his life for the last 12 months. You got experienced guys, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, and Ajinkya Rahane, who's found a new lease of life as well in the IPL. So, and then you throw in, I think Bumrah's a big loss for them. Obviously not being in the side, but I think their bowling attack's still exciting. You've got the likes of Mohammad Shami, Mohammad Siraj, and then the two spinners. And then if they play the all-rounder in Shardul or another seamer in Umesh Yadav. So they've got options. They've got I guess a nice combination through their lineup. I think Rishabh Pant was also a massive miss for them, but I think if India can get it right, then they should come out on top.
He's just come back from the IPL.
Yeah, no, I see.
I don't want to go, you Australia, because Roscoe said Australia, and then it sounds boring. So it's nice to
So you want Australia?
No, it's like I said, it's a toss of a coin.
So you got Australia, you got India.
I think
Go draw.
I think Australia rely on their batters on Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne a lot. I think whereas you look at the Indian batting lineup, I think it's on paper is a stronger batting lineup.
So
obviously both great bowling attacks.
He said they're both great bowling attacks. I talked over him just in case. When you look at Australia and you talk about preparation for you guys going into the World Test Championship, well, they've obviously got the Ashes just around the corner. What's this going to be like in terms of preparation? Would you have to just completely compartmentalise and break the two down as two separate things? You couldn't. That's a lot. Yeah,
I think there's a few. Pujara and Smith played county cricket together at Sussex, so that'll be interesting. The insight that they have of each other, but then you've got to add in the Ashes as well. Australia have still got to play 5 more Test matches after that, and we know how big the Ashes series are to them. Will they have a view of looking towards that next 5 games, knowing that there's one off game in the final? Will that distract them a little bit? We'll have to see. But the Oval this time of year, traditionally the Test matches at the Oval are a little bit later on, so it's probably one of the bouncier wickets in England, but the Duke ball did nothing last year, did it? So it'll be interesting what it does this year.
Got hit out of shape last year.
But no, I mean, it was the first time it was made outside the country, and every time you play in England, there's a big, a lot is made of the Duke ball. So we'll see what it does, in a few days' time.
Are you jealous, Tim? Like, you're obviously still playing. New Zealand would love to be there again, but will you be feeling a bit miffed when you watch it?
It's only natural. You flick on and you'll be like, wish we were there, because we know how amazing it was. It's what you play for, is to be in moments like that, big occasions. And I think it's credit to those two sides. They've played the best cricket over the last 2 years, and they deserve to be there. We haven't played our best cricket over the last 2 years, but I think for us watching it again is another reminder going forward in the next Test Championship cycle to, I guess, something at the end of it that is pretty special.
And what about you, being retired now? When you watch cricket, when you watch something like this, knowing that you the first one's to win it, the last one's to win it, what's that going to be like?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess I'm going to be there for the first 2 days, so look forward to watching.
Is that why you're wearing a blazer?
From afar. It's just that my dress sense
Yeah.
has changed. But no, I think at least you can put yourself in their shoes and know how cool it was to be a part of. But at the same time, I think for international cricket, I think we need Test cricket to still be relevant, and this game is important on numerous amount of levels. And hopefully, it's a great game for the public, but obviously for Test cricket and its survival, we hope it can be a great watch for the public as well.
I know you both love Test cricket, so I do have to ask before we move on to the One Day World Cup. I want to ask a couple of questions about that. But who are you picking for this Ashes series, Tim?
I'd like to see England win. Obviously, Brendan being the coach, and I guess the excitement that I've put around Test cricket in the last 12 months has been amazing for the game. It's got people back talking about Test cricket like it should be. So I haven't been this excited about a series I haven't been involved in for a long time. So I think there's a lot of people that are in a similar boat that are looking forward to the series. Again, two great sides playing some good cricket. So it should be exciting.
For you, Roscoe?
I've got to go with Australia.
Well, you have to, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a great series. How the teams rotate their bowlers is going to be important. But no, I'm a bit like Tim. I think it's going to be a fantastic series. Anytime, be the most hyped Ashes series I would have thought since 2005. But no, the way Brendan and Stokes have reinvigorised, English cricket and world cricket will be interesting. I think if they can win the series, then I think Bazball's around to stay. Where if they don't win, then I think every captain and coach is judged on your Ashes and how well you do, and that I think will define where they are at the moment.
Obviously, a few changes in the New Zealand setup with Tim now captaining. I would have liked to have seen how that played out. I'm sure you two would have helped each other out on the field a lot. But when you watched Tim the Black Caps take on England and they won that test, that historic test at the Basin, what was that like? Was there a feeling of pride for you as a former player?
I mean, I don't. That was one of the most exciting games of cricket I've ever watched. World Cup final for Wags, just the way they ebbed and flowed, and the strength of this team is to fight to the end, and it was no different under Tim, and the way he just hung in there. Wags just keep bowling in the tough situation, and to be 1-0 down in that series to draw it, I think. I think we haven't lost a series at home for a long time, and for that to be on the line as well, great catch. It was a pretty excited. I'm sure if you heard all the yells and screams from our room, it was pretty exciting, and John T was pretty pumped too.
Yeah, well, I was at the airport watching some of it, I think, when you were batting, and everyone was crowded around the television watching, everyone was into it, and I guess, like you were saying, that's what Bazball has done for Test cricket. What was it like to be a part of? Have you had some time to reflect on the summer of cricket that's just been? Yeah,
obviously the first Test, pink ball test, a lot of things can sort of factor into that. But when you're going back to your traditional format, which we'd played some pretty good cricket for a long period of time, especially at the Basin, we're a ground where a lot of guys had success, and then the first half of that game not going so well, winning the toss, then scoring a heap of runs, us getting bundled out. I think the character of the side was tested, and I think it was shown that how strong the character is amongst the group to be able to bounce back, being asked to follow on, and then just the buy-in for the guys to just sort of knuckle down for a couple of days and get ourselves in a position to eventually win that game was very pleasing, and it's, I guess, a good sign, because the Test team's changed so much over time. We've lost a number of guys from, I guess, the core group that have been together for close to 10 years, and for these new guys to come in and step up, and a few old faces sort of sticking in and, I guess, holding the side together as well. But just a great game to be a part of, to be asked to follow on, and then find ourselves in a position to win and to eventually win by one run was amazing.
It was amazing after, because my heart just about stopped on multiple occasions.
I think it's worse watching than playing. It's
I'll take your word for that.
You're so invested into what's going on that you're sort of I think watching is worse.
And then the next Test match.
Yeah.
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 Jeez,
Stop it. just give us a breather. We'll watch the Ashes. We're less invested in that. But although I am very excited for that. We have obviously got the One Day World Cup, which is just around the corner, and we're asking our guests what their favourite moments from World Cups they have played in are. And Roscoe, your 131 against Pakistan in 2011. That was a wee while ago. That is right. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. Did you guys pick that? That's not.
No, I picked it. Yeah, because I think you got. How many times did you think you got dropped in that?
4 times.
It was his birthday, though.
It was my birthday. Yeah, I wasn't batting particularly well at the time. Birthday, had a lot of luck. But it wasn't until I got to about 60 odd that day that I felt comfortable. And yeah, I guess the last 4 overs, myself and Jacob Oram got 90 odd runs and put ourselves in a great position. I think Vittori got injured that game, and we had to go out there, and I think Southee nicked a catch to me as well. So it was probably one of the biggest. Well, Cameron Akmal dropped me, but then Tim nicked off Cameron Akmal to me at first slip, and I was able to catch it, which he wasn't able to. So, yeah, it was definitely a great innings from one of my best innings. But yeah, needed a little bit of luck at the start. There was for sure.
Sometimes you need a little luck. If you were going to pick your favourite moment from a One Day World Cup, what would it be?
Oh, it's probably not a favourite, but I still, even though we're on the wrong end of it, I think 2019 was great to be a part of.
Really?
Some of us still aren't. I don't want to bring that on.
Sorry.
We'll get rid of it.
It could have been better to be a part of.
Yeah, it could have been.
I could think of a couple of things that I would have enjoyed going another way, but yeah.
Yeah,
just to get off that topic, back to Roscoe's.
Your 2011. Let's go back there. That was a simpler time.
I remember bowling to him the day before, and I reckon you had the worst net I've ever seen.
I got bowled like 6-7 times.
We were bowling to him, it was like.
It was like that all the time.
It was, and then when you got dropped, we were like. And then, but it just I think it just shows like the mental strength of Roscoe to be able to go out, put the worst net I've ever seen behind him, and then get over those first few balls, and then produce an innings like that, because we needed it. Because the dew came in, I remember, and we obviously had a great score on the board, but because of the way that Roscoe batted, it allowed us to get that score on the board, because it did. And we got early wickets, which helped, but the dew was a factor, and we knew that we needed to get a lot of runs. So.
Yeah, I reckon I got bowled 3 balls in a row, which I don't think I've ever done at training.
What, at training?
Yeah.
We were literally laughing how bad it was.
Yeah. Well, I kept it together. I didn't get too angry.
Oh. Does Ross get angry? That might be a sensitive subject. I don't know.
How long have you got?
OK, no, I want to ask. We've got plenty of time, though. If you really want to go he on that, I can. Yep. But Tim, for you, I've actually picked your World Cup moment, because I think it was a moment in 2015 that so many of us who've been cricket fans for the longest time, we were all like, this is amazing, because I can still hear your name being yelled out around the Cake Tin in Wellington Sky Stadium now, against England in that game where you took those 7 wickets. Would that be your favourite World Cup moment, or was I too presumptuous?
Oh, it's obviously a nice moment to be able to do that. Just the whole game. First of all, great day in Wellington. It was not that windy, sun was shining, and then to be able to, I guess, bowl them out, and then the way that we chased it down, I think it was a real statement on the tournament. We had played, I think, we played some good cricket in the lead into that game, but that was the first real performance that I guess put us on note for that World Cup, and yeah, it was just one of those games where I think everything we did sort of turned to gold. Like it was, I still think that chase, the way that Brendan chased that down was phenomenal to really, yeah, I guess stamp our mark on that tournament, and a great tournament to be a part of in New Zealand. The crowds that turned out for it, yeah, it was just, again, another special moment, a special time in our careers that I'd imagine we'll look back on with fond memories.
On that day when Tim was bowling, where you were standing, what were you thinking?
I mean, as you saw in those highlights, it was a pretty flat wicket. Like it wasn't
real flat.
It was, you know, like it was a good wicket to bat on, but the way the control he had, I got a catch towards the end there, and that was the most nerve-wracking. I was not under a ball, but waiting for it to come. You didn't want to be the one to drop it, and I think it was the 6th or 7th wicket. So, no, it was a fantastic tournament to be a part of. Tim bowled fantastically well throughout that whole tournament, and the way the public got in behind us. That, as you said, the crowd there and the quarter final and wherever we went was was fantastic. And yeah, I'm sure, you know, everyone who was there, I still get people coming up to us and mentioning Tim and the way Baz batted that day. With fond memories.
I actually remember seeing the England bowlers when someone would say, you know, you want to bowl, they'd be like, when Brendan was batting, no, I think poor Steve Finn. That was really the end for him. Tim, if you were to pick a favourite World Cup moment, what would it be then if it wasn't that? Please don't say 2019.
Definitely not 2019. I think back, there's a few. I think back to the quarter-final against South Africa in Bangladesh in 2011. Under par score, and then we're able to knock out a strong South African side in the quarter-final in tough conditions, and to be the only non-subcontinent side to make it through to the semis, I think as a side was that was a highlight. I think back to the Australia game at Eden Park in 2015, the semi-final in 2015, for us to chase down that score, have the rain, and then for us to be the first New Zealand side to make it through to final. I think that was also a special game as well. So there's a number of them to choose from there.
It's about 10 games.
Yeah, I just asked for one. Just asked for one.
It's hard to separate the three of them.
Hard working.
Certainly wasn't 2019.
Well, we'll just...
They're all games you won. But,
yeah.
Sweet Caroline, I don't like that song.
Terrible song. What a terrible song. They really ruined it. So, Tim, what's it like when you... Because we're talking here in 2011, that was a wee while ago. You've played a lot of your cricket together for a lot of years. What's it like now playing without Ross? As you've taken on the role of captain, would it have been nice to have Ross there for a bit? Because you were always helping Kane out. So what's it like now playing in a team without Ross?
Yeah, it's different. You walk on the bus as a 19-year-old and you see all these faces, and then over 15 years these faces disappear and new ones come, and it's sort of Ross is the last one. You sort of always walk on. There's always that old guy that started before me, and then you walk on now, and there's everyone that started now has started after me. So it's a funny, strange feeling. I guess as well, when you sit in the change room, you play a lot of cricket with guys, and you look around, you see familiar faces. I guess that makes that feeling of knowing what guys are capable of and what the side's been capable of, and I think that's what the Test side especially was like for a long period of time there. There was 7 or 8 guys that were involved in the side for close to 10 years. So I guess that looking around now and seeing different faces, it's exciting, but it's also a different feeling. But yeah, I think especially with the New Zealand side, we're such a small country that we get used to playing, and we do play a lot of cricket with the same people. So yeah, it's changing times, but that's sport. People come and people go.
I'm glad he said, because Tim went straight to the back of the bus as soon as he...
I walked past all his faces.
yeah, right.
Tim was down the back of the bus after about 3 Test matches, so I stayed 2 off the back. So
your whole way through? Did you make it down to the back of the bus?
I never... Oh, we took the back of the bus in England. That was the best time. The best tour to have the back of the bus. That's the only time.
They're the big buses with the tables.
Big bus we could play cards and things. That was the only time I took the back of the bus. But 2 from the back, they were on the left.
That's where you sat?
That's where that was my seat.
Did anyone ever have the audacity to take it, Tim?
No, it's still free now, so we just...
Pop back whenever they like. Yeah. Do you miss it though, Ross?
We're all crammed in there because there's this free seat there. No one wants to sit in it because he's so angry.
To unpack here, I think. Change the tact on the show. But do you miss it?
Yeah, I think I miss elements of it. You know, the first morning of Test matches, big series. You always miss that, but you know, I suppose the travel, the time away from family, the time with your family has been amazing. But no, the team are in good hands with Tim. Yeah, and I enjoy watching from afar, and you know, my son still thinks that I'm better than I am, and wants me to be on the posters. But no, I've had my time and thoroughly enjoyed it, and look forward to the team progressing from here, because yeah, it's got to be an interesting couple of years with a few guys, you know, coming towards the end of their career, and hopefully the youngsters coming through, not only in the team at the moment, but playing domestic cricket, can continue the legacy that the team have gone and done so well over the last 10 or so years.
Ross, Tim, I want to thank you so very much for your time today. Really, it has been great hearing all about the World Test Championship, and congratulations on still being the winners at this moment in time. Not for much longer, though. Well done to you guys. Thank you so much, and we will have that World Test Championship live for you on Sky. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.